week 3 of the fantasy football season. And here's a few wide receivers I would look to start this week. The first guy, Jalen Waddle of the Miami Dolphins. So what a first 2 weeks it's been for Jalen Waddle and this Dolphin team. This offense, a high-powered offense, and they're throwing a football a ton so far in the early going here. With Waddle and Hill, what a 1-2 combo, and Waddle, one of the quickest wide receivers, and one of the better wide receivers already in the league, only in his second year starting up this year. Week 1 versus New England, 8 rush yards in that one, 4 catches, 69 yards and a touchdown. And then week 2 at Baltimore, they just let loose in that one. 19 targets in that ball game, 11 catches, 171 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But week 3 here, definitely a tough matchup versus Buffalo. But in this ball game, I think this Buffalo team, they're going to shut down the run early and often. And I even could see this Buffalo team get off to a big start in this game, where obviously Tua needs some magic once again like he did in week 2 versus Baltimore. And he's just going to pepper Waddle with targets in this one again. So pretty much Jalen Waddle, he's in a position right now where he's a wide receiver. You got to start him week in and week out, and he's matchup proof. And right here with a tough matchup versus the Buffalo Bills, I would definitely go out there and start Jalen Waddle, because with his speed and yard after catch prowess and the targets he's seen so far in the first few weeks here, he's pretty much a wide receiver that on just targets alone and stuff, he's going to get the volume and put up the fantasy points. The next wide receiver is T. Higgins of the Cincinnati Bengals. So T. Higgins, it looked like after week 1, he was going to be a long shot for week 2 with a concussion and obviously a death in his family. But right here, week 1 was a bad ball game for him and obviously cut short with the concussion, 2 catches, 27 yards. But the week 2 with Dallas, he came alive in the second half of that ball game and had a better ball game than Jamar Chase, 10 targets, 6 catches, 71 yards and a touchdown. And week 3 here, he's got a good matchup at the New York Jets, where all the attention's going to be obviously going to Jamar Chase in that ball game. And we saw Amari Cooper carve up this New York Jets secondary in that week 2 ball game. So right here, I think Higgins once again could get 70, 80 total yards in this one and find the end zone. And he's a perfect number 2 to flex option each and every week as well. Here's T. Higgins for fantasy owners. And he's a good wide receiver to start this week. The next guy, A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles. So pretty much I like all the good players on this Eagle team here, all the starters. I said I like Jalen Hurts in my quarterback to start videos. I said in my wide receiver, obviously this video, A.J. Brown. Running backs, Miles Sanders, and Dallas Goedert as well in my tight end video. So A.J. Brown had a monster week 1, 13 targets, 10 catches, 155 yards. But week 2 versus Minnesota, a mediocre ball game in PPR leagues. 5 catches, 69 yards on 8 targets, where it was Dallas Goedert and Devonta Smith doing most of the damage, and Quez Watkins catching a deep 50-plus yard touchdown in that one. So week 3 here, Washington, I think A.J. Brown's going to have a big ball game, and I think he could get to 100 yards in this one and find the end zone. This Washington team, they've been carved up by number 1 wide receivers the first 2 weeks of the season. Christian Kirk, week 1, having a monster game, and then Amon St. Brown having 150 total yards in week 2 versus Washington team. So this is an NFC East matchup, no doubt about it. But this secondary is no good over there in Washington, and I could see both teams putting up numbers on the scoreboard. So A.J. Brown is a must-start this week here, and I think he could have a similar game like he did in week 1 of the fantasy football season. The next wide receiver is Drake London of the Atlanta Falcons. So Drake London, I liked him a lot in the preseason. The last week, to be honest, I didn't like the matchup for him, but he had a good ball game in week 2, was London at the Rams. 8 catches, 86 yards, a touchdown, 2-point conversion, and 12 targets. And right now, quickly, he's becoming the number 1 option over there in this Falcon offense. And Marcus Mariota and him have a pretty good rapport. So week 3 at Seattle, we know Seattle hasn't been good so far to number 1 wide receivers for the most part. Cortland Sutton in week 1 had a decent ball game. And week 2, Deebo Samuel were pretty good. So week 3 here at Seattle, this is a ball game where I could see it be a close type of ball game between both teams here. Drake London, he's got all the tools to be a number 1 wide receiver. And right here is definitely a good rookie class, no doubt about it. Drake London, Garrett Wilson in this rookie class. We've seen Chris Olave, he's been decent so far in the early going, but Drake London, I think, could be the best wide receiver in this rookie class this season. And he was number 1 drafted wide receiver as well in this class. So right here, he's definitely a wide receiver I would start this week. And the 5th and final wide receiver I would start is Christian Kirk of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So coming into the season, I didn't think Christian Kirk would get off to a big start, and I thought he would be an inconsistent wide receiver. But so far, Obviously, he's a favorite of Trevor Lawrence in this offense, and he's been playing great football in the first 2 weeks of the season. Week 1 at the Commanders, 6 catches, 117 yards. In Week 2 versus the Colts, he went off in that one, 6 catches, 78 yards, and he found the end zone twice. So right here in Week 3, I think the game script's going to be this Charger team gets off to a 10-14 point start, and then Christian Kirk and this offense is going to have to pass the ball and just pepper him with targets. So far in the first 2 weeks of the season here, 18 targets for Christian Kirk. So a decent matchup on paper. I think he could find the end zone once again. And pretty much he's becoming a wide receiver you start as your number 2 receiver each and every week in the early going. So that's a few wide receivers I look to start here for Week 3 of the fantasy football season.